Did you know that the United Nations has just announced that all the numbers they got from Hamas were lies? Of course, when I told you that during the last 6 months, gee, you really do? You believe Hamas? The sadist butchers? The Nazis of our time? You believe them? UN halves, HALVES, its estimate of women and children killed in Gaza. From the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, we're reporting it. The United Nations office, and the UN, by the way, is not predisposed to saying anything positive about Israel. The United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, revised its child fatality figure from the Gaza war sharply downward, reporting more than 14,500 deaths on May 6th, but then reporting 7,797 on May 8th. How do you like that? That's genocide for you. My column coming out tomorrow is that this generation's blood libel, when Jews were accused of killing Christian children to use their blood to bake matzah. This generation's blood libel, it's the moral equivalent of that, is the genocide libel. The left is on the moral level of the Christians in the Middle Ages who had Jews burned at the stake for allegedly using a Christian child for their blood. You have no idea how many Jewish communities were wiped out or kicked out. Every Jew in England was kicked out. OCHA also revised downward its figure for women fatalities from more than 9,500 deaths to 4,959 deaths. The Jerusalem Post reported the changes on May 11th. The UN attributed its original higher figures to a Hamas-controlled government media office in Gaza, whose figures OCHA has cited continually for the past 2 months. The UN gave no source for the lower figures in its May 8th update, but the figures precisely match those in a May 2nd report from a different Hamas-controlled organization, the Gaza Ministry of Health. David Adesnik, FDD Senior Fellow and Director of Research, FDD is Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, quote, "This change may signal that the United Nations has finally recognized the lack of evidence behind Hamas's original claims that more than 14,000 children and 9,000 women have been killed in Gaza. If so, the UN should state clearly that it has lost confidence in sources whose credibility it has affirmed for months. While this change may only reflect the conclusion of one UN office out of the many operating in Gaza, it is a clear step forward." In early April, the Gaza Ministry of Health admitted it had, quote, "incomplete data," unquote, to document more than 10,000 of the deaths it had previously reported. Subsequently, the ministry indicated that it did not have names for more than 10,000 of the individuals it claimed to be deceased. Sounds somewhat like election rolls in parts of America. They don't have the names. We know it's 10,000. We just don't know who they are.
I don't even know if we can trust these 50%.
No, how do we know we can trust the 50%? To the Wall Street Journal's credit, and I had read this to you a month ago, a professor of statistics at the University of Pennsylvania said, figure this out. This is the same as, it's less than an urban combat anywhere. the ratio of combatants to civilians. As of April 1st, the ministry also stopped repeating the claim it made since the first weeks of the war that 70% of the dead were women and children, even suggesting the media invented this number. It's awesome. Here is the ultimate question. I wonder what my producer thinks. If you had to bet on it, living martyr, would you bet the New York Times will report this or not?
I haven't seen anything.
I know. I haven't seen anything either. Although if I did, I wouldn't have asked you what you would bet on.
No. I'll bet no.
You bet no. New York Times functionally is the Pravda of our day. And I guess the Washington Post is Izvestia.
Well, it doesn't have the Biden narrative, does it? If it's half, then what's all this stuff about civilians?
The media invented this number, says Hamas. Meanwhile, the GMO continues to promote the 70% figure while revising its own numbers upwards to remain consistent with that claim. For the full episode of The Dennis Prager Show, go to pragertopia.com, sign up, and become a full member.